Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I'll be your host and your teacher for today. Today we're going to take a look at some really fun blending, and we're not going to worry about the letters that you see in front of this canvas. Instead, we're going to work on just creating some nice, cool sunset background. Everybody's starting to think a little bit about spring and summer, and they love those cool sunsets with the sun just kind of going down where everything turns really cool colors. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a help today, kind of showing how to achieve that. So before we start, we always kind of kick it off with an inventory of supplies, and today we're going to be using just 2 brushes, and I may decide to kind of stay with one. This is really going to be your preference. I have both with me, a number 12 filbert and a number 6 filbert. We are always using acrylic paint, and today we have a beautiful array of all the colors of the rainbow. We have white, we have naphtha red, we have pink, phthalo blue, black, cad orange, and cad yellow. As always, again, we have a cup of water for washing off your paintbrushes and a dab rag as well for dabbing off. Now, we take a look at our canvas and kind of decide where's the foreground, where's the background, and what are we going to start with first. So, I always like to give us a good line of, especially when I'm doing something that has to do with water, where's the horizon line? So I always kind of give us a quick line across the canvas to say, where is the horizon line? Where's the water and where's the background? So that's pretty easy. Now, one thing I do want to point out to everybody at home, when we're working with blue and yellow right together, don't forget, blue and yellow makes green. Now, we don't typically see green in a sunset color. So what you're going to have to do is make sure you kind of plan out the timing of what you're going to be working on. I'll start out by putting a blue line here, and I'm going to come in probably the very last thing after this that first line dries and add my yellow. And we'll kind of bring it up as close as possible. So your goal is going to be able to bring it really, really tight in. You don't want the two to activate each other and start blending because you don't want green in your skyline. So let's go ahead and kick it off by starting with our nice white 16 by 20 canvas. Let's wake up those paint brushes, and we're going to dip our number 12 into the water, dab it off, kind of get it going. And we're going to start off with dipping it into our phthalo blue. And again, we're just going to draw that horizon line and just decide. Now, we had a pretty low horizon line, and we only showed a little bit of water because we were really focusing on the sky and the transitioning of those really cool colors. So we're going to keep with that and just kind of throw it out here. Now, don't worry too much if it's not exactly straight. You can kind of go over and over until you feel good about the line. So just go ahead, get it out there. As a matter of fact, let's kind of complete this, the top of this portion, as much as possible. I don't want to have to come back to this. I don't want to have to reactivate this paint. I want to give this paint some good time to dry. So when I'm eventually bringing the yellow down to it, I'm going to bring it nice and close. Try not to touch it. Try not to activate it. So we're just kind of getting it in there. Now, you'll notice I'm getting some paint on here. This is a nice exercise in blending. Once I put paint on, I always make sure I take my paintbrush left and right, broad strokes, all the way across the canvas, making sure I erase any of my stops and starts. Our original had a little bit of shadowing over here on the side and up to the top. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce a little bit of black. Not a whole heck of a lot, just a little bit. My strokes are coming in from the side towards the center. And then as well, I'm going to go back to that blue. I'm not cleaning it off because, again, I got a lot of blue and black just jumping in between. And I'm not worrying about the exact placement of the strokes as we go down. So we're just getting some nice coverage here. And again, folks, for you at home, if you're seeing white dimpling, and that's really the texture of the canvas showing through, that's your canvas telling you you need more paint. So don't be intimidated. Go ahead, get some more paint on there. Now we also are going to bring in some white So I'm just grabbing it. Again, I'm not washing off the paint. And I'm starting to introduce this in the center, kind of opposite the placement of my shadow lines. So you see we get these nice, beautiful blended strokes. This gives you a nice feeling of the water is just smooth. I don't have a lot of waves. I'm getting a lot of light cascading on the water. Now that's the look I'm going for. If you're looking for a little bit more caps into your water, then go ahead, feel free to add more white and let it sit there. Don't blend it in, and I'll give you kind of an example of that. So let's go ahead and put some pieces in there. This has become very tempting to want to keep overworking some of your whites. What you need to do is kind of play with it. Just set it down there and let it sit. Now you notice, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my strokes horizontal. I'm not allowing them to go vertical, I'm not allowing them to go diagonal, I'm keeping them horizontal because my view of the water is showing the movement going right and left. That's typically how you view the water. So if you want a little bit of caps, make sure your water is, or your whites are very solid and you don't do a lot of blending. If you want it more smoother, go ahead, blend it in for a nice blended feel. So let's go ahead, wash that off a little bit. And we're going to go back to the top of the canvas and we're going to start from our sky. And we're going to bring that beautiful sky down. And I'm going to make sure I get coverage here on top. Now folks, these are wraparound canvases, so if you want to hang this on your wall, don't forget to bring your paint all the way around the sides, wrap them around. That way, if you don't have a frame, you've got the option to hang this on your wall and it looks kind of complete. There you go. So as I progress down my canvas, while my paint is wet, I'm going to grab some more of that white and start introducing some of that white. In this instance, what we're doing is we're kind of creating the feeling of the sky. Very similar, obviously, to the water down here. Now, if you want to lighten up your sky, feel free to do so. The composition of this particular painting was to mirror the water up in the sky. And the key to really accomplishing a nice transition down here is this is a hustle painting, so you have to move quickly down your painting to get that blended feel while their paints are still wet. If you allow them to dry, it really becomes too late. Now, there are techniques. You can go ahead and introduce water. You can start moving things back up, and I'll show you that. Water is a good medium. You can reactivate your paint by doing that, but you want to get as much transition down as quickly as possible to get that nice blended feel. So come back in. Let's add some nice movement of wind. Up in our sky. Again, you don't want it to be one solid color. We like that nice variation because that's what you're seeing up in the sky. It's a nice variation of color. Very rarely is it one solid color. It happens. You see it. All right. So then next we're going to move down into our pinks and our reds. So let's go ahead. Let's wash off that brush. We're going to get rid of some of that blue as much as possible. Dab it on your dab rag, get rid of that water. Again, we don't want the water dripping down onto our canvas. And we're going to start the transition. We're going to grab some of that red, and we're going to put this right next to the blue. Now immediately I'm going to grab some pink, come in right on top, and it's okay if you've got a little blue in there, that's all right, because we're going to get a little bit of blending here. And I'm going to go up into the color above and then come down. And this is what helps to kind of blur the transition. That, and we love white. White comes on top and helps to blur some of that. If you get a little too much blue, go ahead and wash that off. We'll go back to our pink. Grabbing some more white. Now white is a wonderful medium, and I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but actually white makes these pigments more solid, helps them give better coverage to your canvas. Reds by themselves, pinks by themselves, purples by themselves will not actually cover the canvas. They're very translucent. When you add white to them, they actually cover much better. Again, once we get our paint on the canvas, that's where we go back and forth, kind of covering up our stops and starts, emphasizing any darks you want to add in there, throwing in a little bit of white. That's where we've got some wind blowing. That's what I like to see in the sky. All right. So you see how we kind of brought that up into the sky here? That's kind of how we transition from one color, very dark pigment, into another. That's how we kind of make those lines blend. So we're going to continue down. These next two lines will be much easier because the pigments are a little bit closer in color. So we're going to grab our orange. We're going to bring our orange down. Because what you don't want to end up with is just a solid rainbow line where you've got a solid brick of orange and a solid brick of pink. As you're adding these different colors, what you're giving yourself is the ability to kind of make it very vague as far as where one starts and the next one ends. Again, I'm going to go up into that red and then bring it down. You're almost creating a new color in between, which is kind of cool. Once I get good coverage, I come back on top, grabbing a little bit of solid orange, grabbing a little bit of solid white, reintroducing that to my canvas, and just giving it some really nice streaks. This kind of shows that the wind is blowing, and it's just kind of catching the sky there. So we're going to continue down and go into our yellow. And I'm going to make sure that I've cleaned off my paintbrush. As you can see, you got a little blue going on in there. Your water, you may at this point want to go ahead and dump your water. I may have a little bit of blue still left in mine, so we'll do my best to kind of go ahead and dab it off, get rid of that water. And then we'll kind of transition this down. So grabbing some of that white, muting the vibrance of the yellow, and then bringing it up into the orange just like we did previously. And bringing it down. And look how you create this nice in-between color that really didn't exist before. carry that all the way across. So grabbing some more yellow when you need it, and then some white as well. Now at this point, depending on how dry your blue is, what you may choose to do is go ahead, leave a little break here, and actually take a break at home. So don't feel you need to finish this up right here, right now on the spot. So if you need to step away and let this kind of dry for a good 10 minutes, and then come back and work with your paintbrush, and then bring it in as close as possible without reactivating that blue, you can do so after you've given that a little bit more time to dry. And then that way you've kind of created a nice transition without ending up with any green. The last thing, and the most important thing, is don't forget to take a step back. So obviously I'm standing here all this whole time and kind of painting from the side, but you at home, you need to make sure you take a step back. Make sure that your horizontal lines are straight. A lot of times we paint with the movement of our shoulder, so a lot of times they get kind of shifted a little bit. So make sure you make any adjustment for that while your paint is still wet, and then kind of play with it. Add some more depth, add some more highlight with the white paint, and have fun with it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this painting today and you've learned some new tips. If you'd like to learn more about painting this type of painting or others, send us an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you for joining us.